Alright, so in this video we're checking out the Axisflying Blue Cat C35. So this is another 3.5 inch pusher style Cinewhoop. Going to be kind of comparing this to the Veyron 35CR and the Cinelog 35. I've never flown the ProTech 35, so I'm not going to be talking about that in this video, but feel free to make your comparisons down in the comments if you'd like. This is a very different design compared to some of the other ones out there with plastic prop guards, and I know that a lot of you that had some pretty bad crashes on the Cinelog 35 or the Veyron have told me in the comments that they've broken those plastic prop guards. Now this is a totally different design here. No plastic prop guards here. You can see pusher style, very open air design in the bottom here, so no turbulence from the thrust going down, and instead of plastic prop guards here you have a combination of carbon fiber parts and TPU parts. This is kind of what I would call like a skeleton style frame where you cannot eliminate these TPU parts and just have the carbon parts. So some might think that's a con and some might think that's a pro. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, but basically you have to, basically the TPU parts are an integrated part of the design. You can't have one without the other. As you can see here, you have these carbon fiber bottom plates here, but they don't extend here on the bottom part of the TPU that provides the prop protection, whereas on the top part here you have this thin prop guard here. Carbon fiber goes all the way around, but only on the top part of the TPU. And so you have these little screws and standoffs here to sort of keep the prop guards rigid. There's some flex in it if you want to twist it, but obviously you do want some flex in this. When you crash, these TPU parts are probably going to take most of the impact and absorb the shock, so the carbon fiber pieces will probably survive. I did not run this over with the truck, so if you're asking me to do that, you'll have to go somewhere else to see that video. In terms of the plates here, most of these are 2mm carbon fiber plates, and all the carbon is very nice. Let's see if the camera can focus on these. Clean cuts, it seems like high quality. The main plate here where the motors and everything is attached to is 3mm thick. Some of these bottom plates are 2.5mm thick. So you can see here there's this main bottom plate here where the VTX is attached to, and you have these two front and back bottom plates. This is the analog version, so it comes with the Runcam Phoenix, Rush Tank Mini, I believe, VTX video transmitter, and this one comes with the Axisflying Express All-Arrest receiver. It does come in different receiver versions. It does come in Vista version for DJI, and as well as a full-size air unit, which you can get down here in this bottom section. So they didn't send me the Vista version because I guess Vistas are kind of hard to find these days again. So apparently there's another shortage occurring. I guess that's not a good sign. So this one here has the 2004 motors. This one is 1810 kV, which is like the main one I think that they are pushing for 6S. If you want to get the 4S version, I think you have to do a special order for that. I think it's 2950 kV, I believe, on the 4S version. I will talk about the KVs of all of these different versions and a comparison to the other ones a little bit later in the video. So if you're wondering about that, some people have asked me about that. I will talk about that later, so hang on. Let me get to the rest of this particular model here. Now, this one here has the dampened camera mount here for your GoPro. So the whole idea behind these 3.5 inch Cinewhoops is to carry a full-size GoPro, no naked GoPro. And I flew this around with a Hero 8, and it has the standard GoPro finger mounts here. So you just pull these little finger mounts out and mount it in, and then screw that down to tighten your angle. It does have the dampeners that the Cinelog 35 has, and you can adjust the tension of these dampeners. So if you get jello in your video, you want to adjust the tension here on this screw that goes down to the nut here on the bottom. You can see there's a lock nut there. You can adjust the the vibration dampening force, and it's going to change based on the weight of your camera. So if you have a heavier camera, you probably don't want this to be as loose, and if it's lighter, maybe not. It really kind of depends. You have to make your adjustments and fly it and see what kind of footage you get. But the whole point is it has a nice dampening system here, and I like the fact that it's got the screw that you can adjust so that the basically the tightness of this rubber ball dampener can be adjusted based on your camera weight, so you don't have any vibrations in your video. So this is one of the advantages that that this model has and the Cinewhoop 35 has, but like other models like the Veyron C35 does not have this feature, which is good for getting higher quality video, especially if you're using like real steady go and stabilization. You don't want any additional vibration in the camera. The flight controller is the HackRC F722 40 amp all-in-one. It's the same one that was in the Colas 6 folding drone that I showed a little bit earlier. This is I think they're going to be using this one in a lot of their models. They're using the same board in the other versions as well for the DJI version. So overall, it's a pretty good board. I haven't had any issues with it. What's interesting is on this model here, they have flashed, I think not Jazz Maverick, I think Blue Jay firmware on this one, and they have RPM filter enabled on this one, whereas they did not have that enabled on the Colas, which has the same flight controller. So something I thought was kind of interesting when in the setup. Now overall, in terms of the PID tune and the flight characteristics, very solid in my opinion. I think that they did a pretty good job on this one, especially considering this is probably of the three that I've flown, Cinewhoop 35, the Veyron 35 CR, and this one, this is the heaviest of all the three, and I'll go over the weight comparisons here shortly, and I'll talk about that in more detail. But even with the heavier weight and carrying a full-size GoPro, even though it only has the 2004 motors, I thought it didn't feel too underpowered, although I don't think you want to be doing any flippy floppies with this one or diving buildings. I know you get that question commonly in the comments section. Can I dive buildings with a Cinewhoop? And I would recommend not doing it because you do get some instability from the extra weight being on the outside, basically disrupting the center of gravity and also the airflow. The disturbances, I don't think Betaflight can handle that very well when it comes to Cinewhoops. Yes, it is possible you can do it if you're a very skilled pilot, but for most people I would recommend against it. It's just you know, a lot of times you'll get some instabilities, and then if you're doing like a building dive, then all of a sudden it will just desync on you, and then you crash. And probably crashing, diving a building from 40 stories up is probably not a good thing for this. It's probably going to be destroyed. So yeah, can I do flippy floppy? Sure. Would I want to do it? No, not me. I'll pass on that. Okay, so I made a little chart here for all the different motor sizes and KVs, as well as the weights, analog and digital. Yeah, just follow along here. I'm going to kind of go over each of these things and explain my thoughts on how each of these flies based on the weights and the motors that they have. So as I said, the Blue Cat is the heaviest, and you can see here there's a slight difference between the analog and the DJI version. I didn't get the weight of the full air size version. Obviously that's going to be heavier, probably another 20 grams, so add like another 20 grams on top of the 332, so about 350 grams. This is without a camera and without a battery. The 2004 motors on this one have a higher KV than the Cinewhoop 35. So on the 4S it's 2910, and on the 6S it's 1810 versus 2550 and 1750 on the Cinewhoop. Now I had the 4S version of the Cinewhoop 35, and I thought that the 2550 KV was a little low on that version. So I've never tried the 6S version, but I've heard from people that the 1750 was adequate. So they made some very strange choices on their motor KVs for that model. Like I said, I would recommend the 6S version of the Cinewhoop 35 over the 4S version. And of course, on the Blue Cat here, you know, having it at 1810 is, I think, going to be pretty good. I felt like it was totally fine. I flew on a 6S 1100 milliamp hour LiPo with the GoPro Hero 8. I didn't feel like it was underpowered. I felt I had good control in terms of doing normal type of Cinewhoop flying, as you'll see here in the flight demo. Of course, I didn't try the 4S at 2910 kV, but As I said before, on the Cinelog, 2550 felt low, so 2910 is probably about right. Although I still would recommend the 6S version. I just think that you're going to have more efficiency, better flight times, I think, overall compared to the 4S version. Now, this is just my speculation. I haven't flown the 4S version, so I'm just kind of making a guess here. Now, if you compare the 2004 motors to the 2105.5 Forest analog, the Forest version of the Veyron, so that's a much bigger motor. What's interesting is like the Veyron has bigger motors than the Blue Cat, but it actually weighs less than the Blue Cat. So the analog is like 267 grams versus 314 for the Blue Cat, and the DJI is 294 versus 332 for the Blue Cat. So even though the Blue Cat has the smaller, lighter 2004 motors, the Veyron has much bigger motors, but overall a lower weight. And I think what they're going for here, and also, by the way, the KV is much higher. As you can see, this is a question I got from some people, is why is the KV so high? 2800 for 6S and 3600 for 4S. And when I flew the Veyron, I didn't feel like I got hot motors or any kind of weird oscillations or vibrations. It is a very high KV. It does have more punch-out performance, of course, at a higher KV, but it's much less efficient. So, from my recollection, the 2006 motor, bigger than the 2004 and a higher KV, it wasn't as efficient, even though it weighed less on the same battery. So you're going to get less flight time, but you're going to get more performance. So if you're looking for more acro ability, more aggressive flying, I think the Veyron is probably going to be better than the Blue Cat. But if you're looking for more cinematic flying, a little bit more efficiency, better flight time, I think the Blue Cat's going to be better, and at least in this category. This sort of weight class. But then for the lighter Cinelog 35, I think the advantage there is that you can go with a lighter battery, like maybe like an 856S, an overall lighter setup, and still get the same amount of flight time. Although the downside on the Cinelog, I think, compared to the other two, is going to be the prop guards are probably the weakest out of the three. And so if you have a tendency to crash a lot, maybe you probably want to go for something like the Blue Cat over the plastic prop guards of the Veyron and the Cinelog. Although, those prop guards are probably pretty easy to replace, whereas the ones on the Blue Cat, if you crack the carbon fiber, you got to replace the carbon fiber. All the TPU parts aren't going to break, just have to replace the carbon fiber parts. So maybe they'll have some spare parts. I didn't see any yet, but I'm pretty sure that they'll make those available. And those little, those carbon fiber parts don't seem like they would cost a lot, because it's just like, one piece. So it really kind of depends on what kind of crash you have as well. So, every crash is a little bit different. So it's going to be hard to really judge the durability, the long-term durability of the Blue Cat over the other two, but I think it's going to be a little bit better. And I think that's where the extra weight comes in. Anyway, so that's my discussion here of the three models and the different weights and what I think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Here's the flight footage of this. Very nice and smooth for cinematic flying. I think it looks pretty good. And that's going to do it for this video. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.